we're not going to have any slides at all because we want people to say what they're doing and then interact when we get to the end of the three speakers, who I'm very grateful to. I will then ask for questions. Now, possibly press you to ask questions. Okay? I'm Anthony Watkinson, and this is based upon a follow-up to some work which we've described at Charleston before. And things have moved on a bit in the sense that my former colleague, David Sims, my name is important because I don't know where it's being published. I think it's the ACRL journal, but I don't know if it's been accepted yet. I know it's being reviewed, and it's called Raising a Red Flag for Academic Librarians, Marginal Users of Academic Libraries. And if it is published, you'll find it under David Sims. I'm a co-author, low down on the list. Now, just to explain the background here. The group I belong to, which is a research group, independent research group, has been working on early career researchers for some years. And when I say working on them, I mean interviewing them at some length on the basis of a particular list of questions, or what we call an interview schedule. Other people would call it a protocol, perhaps. And we interview them about the scholarly communication in general, their attitudes to scholarly communication, things like, for example, peer review, or other aspects of the whole gamut of scholarly communication points. And most recently, we did work for the Sloan Foundation, which ran into this, what I'm going to talk about now, quickly. This is on the attitudes and practices of early career researchers insofar as they were impacted on by the pandemic, as we call it, because it's the easiest word to use when you're dealing with 8 different countries. The 8 different countries include the UK and the US. And I did the UK, and my colleague David Sims did the US. And we all interviewed 3 times over a period of about 2.5 years. So 3 times the same people, the same questions, because they changed to see what their changes were over the period. So now, I'm now going to stop talking, even though I might have forgotten something, because the most important thing is these people very kindly have come out of the bushes, as it were. 2 of them have been forced by their heads of their directors to come, and the other one was forced by me quite recently because he works with my son. So, and he very kindly said, "Can they agree?" Now, I've told them I'm not going to introduce them because it's better they introduce themselves, probably more correctly. I might have got their names wrong. I'm going to ask them to speak for under 10 minutes, and then I will try and press you all to talk back. The idea is this is something which needs to be sorted out. And what we found out is almost in every country, including the US, there was a massive indifference to libraries among the early career researchers. When I say early career researchers, I mean people doing doctorates or doing postdoctoral work. And anybody who wants above that, including some assistant professors who were not tenured. That's the key thing. And it didn't matter about their age terribly, but most of them were young. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. These are the people I'm talking about. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. We'll see. The question of the pandemic fitted in to slots, as it were, in the overall picture for starting who these people were. Were they in a research group? These are all scientists, incidentally, all social scientists or hard sort. And they came, as I say, they came from all, this is the US cohort we're talking about, what they said. And this is what's being recorded in this article I've given you the title of. Okay, so I now shut up and sit down. So Aida, you can do it from there.
How close do I have to be? Is this okay? Okay. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Aida Miro-Herrans, pronounced she, her, and ella, and I am the Bioinformatics Librarian at the University of Florida. What that means is I do consultations and instruction in data analysis, specifically molecular data. So hopefully everyone's heard of DNA, right? So researchers who need help analyzing their data can come to me, and we'll figure out how to get it done. I spend more time learning, a lot of time learning. My background, I have a PhD in genetic anthropology, so using DNA to study human history. I then did a postdoc at the University of Texas at Austin, and a second postdoc at the University of Florida, where I did my PhD. And during the pandemic, I found myself searching for jobs and landed at the library, which has been a perfect position for me because teaching is the thing I love most. In this process, in my academic process, kind of two main challenges, professional challenges arose. And one was learning these very technical skills on your own, because when you're in a small lab and you don't have other people that know how to do these methods, it's like banging your head on a board consistently trying to figure out how to do this. And so in that aspect, I really try to reach out to the researchers that are doing the work, which tends to be the grad students and the postdocs, right? The faculty come up with the ideas and they get the money, but the people who are really doing the work are the grad students and the postdocs. So I explicitly reach out to these communities to work with them and doing teaching and consultation. And then the other aspect was doing postdoctoral research is very isolated, right? You get tunnel vision, you're very focused on your work. And unless you're in a big lab, you're generally like the only postdoc in a group. So it's very lonely. And as the librarian, I've made it a point to reach out explicitly to that community as well. So in addition to that technical work, I am on the postdoc advisory committee. I work directly with the postdoctoral association at UF main campus and at UF Scripps. And so I try to provide support, help you based on my experience and challenges, but also finding out what their needs are kind of on a more broad, like scholarly perspective. So while they have the liaisons from their subject specialists that for the departments they belong to, I try to do work through the different entities on a bigger picture scale. What do you need broadly as a what can the libraries offer you so that you don't necessarily have to try to figure out one specific thing? We have a point person, come to me with any questions, and then I will help you navigate to where you might need to go back to your subject specialist or any other area that you might need. And so I work on different, with these different committees, and then I do instruction with a target where I specifically target, graduate students and postdocs. And we recently did a survey at the library to assess the bioinformatics needs. And so I was across campus, right, trying to get the different roles, right, staff, faculty, graduate students, professional students. But I made like an extra effort to reach out to grad student organizations and the postdoc organizations to get feedback from them. And there was about 20% of my respondents are graduate students or postdocs. So while it's small, it's, I think, still big enough to get some good insights into how we can better support them. Me specifically as a bioinformatics librarian, but more broadly how the library and our academic research consulting and services department of the library can support them.
Now, just before Kimberly starts, I didn't make absolutely clear. I didn't want to run over the stuff I already presented at Charleston because, but the point is that the great majority of early career researchers never went anywhere near a librarian, and of course never went in the building as such. They had never seen a librarian. These early career researchers, both particularly in the US, the ones who were doing doctoral work. I was very surprised about that because I would have said it was a postdoctoral who suffer from alienation in the university setting, especially if they come from somewhere outside the university. And they come and they're dependent on their PI. They have nothing to do with the rest of the university in many cases. But it was the younger ones that were particularly affected in the US. Okay, go ahead, Kimberly.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Pendell. I am from Portland State University. I am the liaison librarian to the School of Social Work and the Department of Sociology, but what I'm talking about today isn't specific to those departments at all. So I had been teaching in the graduate school at Portland State, had been sponsoring and still sponsors a graduate student workshop series. And I had started teaching in those workshops quite a few years ago with like searching for your literature review, maybe citation management, those kinds of things. And there were some other like more writing focused workshops. In those workshops, I started having conversations with students where it was, and again, these are graduate students. We have a lot of master's students at Portland State and some PhD, and we're in R2. We have less than 20 postdocs from my understanding. So when I talked to students, it seemed like there was a lot of anxiety for many of them starting out in grad school, feeling like there was so much that they were supposed to know how to do that they had never explicitly been taught how to do. So based on those conversations and then thinking about the structure of we're on a quarter system and the way the credits play out, a lot of our grad students end up taking a 1-credit course, and often that is maybe readings with their advisor or some other thing that they come up with basically to do this 1 credit that they need to be considered full-time. And so I felt like there was an opportunity there for myself to build a 1-credit online asynchronous course for graduate students that it's disciplinarily neutral, so it's open to students across the board. I do advertise it as a course that's best suited for students who are working on their dissertation, thesis, or some other large research project. I've been teaching this course now for the last 3 years, and I've had very, very positive responses from students. And part of those responses included this idea that I think librarians are in a unique position to provide a space for students to learn, to be vulnerable and learn certain things that, again, they feel like they should have known, but no one has taught them. So I actually start out the course in the first week with students doing introductions and then a discussion about the hidden curriculum. And, at first I was kind of worried that was asking a lot of them, like asking them to be very vulnerable in the first week of a course, but it's actually gone really, really well, and they've really appreciated that conversation, and they've appreciated hearing from their fellow graduate students across other programs and disciplines. And then we do, literature review, searching, citation management, data management, planning at a pretty basic level, communicating visually, communicating broadly, and then scholarly publishing. And I got a very nice email from a former student a couple weeks ago who said that because of my course, she she had projects she was working on and wanted to write them up, but she didn't really understand like how to find a journal to submit to, how to navigate that process or what to expect. And she's now published 2 articles and is publishing a book chapter. So that's what I've been working on. And honestly, it's been, for me professionally, I feel almost selfish teaching the class because it's been very rewarding to be able to work with students over a period of time. A lot of us instruction librarians, you see a student for an hour, you might never see them again, and you don't know what's happened, you know. So that's what I've been doing, and I look forward to your questions.
I should explain again also, I didn't mention the fact that all these people are doing different things, but they're all combining, reaching out to the researchers. But there's Jason, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm Jason Colman. I'm Director of Publishing Services at Michigan Publishing and a librarian at University of Michigan Library. I'm just going to talk really briefly about our library's commitment to engagement with early career researchers and go over this specific example of this program we call Publishing as Pedagogy. So the Publishing as Pedagogy program uses what are to us as publishers within the library really familiar publishing industry workflows that we have perfected over the years for our 30 open access journals that we publish to create these sort of real world immersive experiences for students in publishing. So using the terminology publishing as pedagogy, we're attempting to shift the emphasis that we usually have on the products that we're publishing, books and journals, that kind of thing, to the process of doing that publishing work. And we're particularly interested in partnering between the library and groups of graduate students in whatever discipline it might be across the university. And there's been one particularly successful example that's been going for about 7 years that I wanted to talk about. So in 2016, 7 years ago, the University of Michigan Medical School came to us during this process they were going through of revamping their curriculum. And the goal of this revamp was to produce what they called physician leaders who were capable of leading change in healthcare. And core to that was communication skills, not just patient care, but also in research. So they believed that medical students needed to be able to work effectively in teams and communicate everything they're doing across the whole spectrum of folks they talk to. So Michigan Publishing already partnered pretty frequently with the medical school to publish local publications that for clinics, that kind of thing. We did a lot of books that were used actually for children's surgery clinics and that sort of thing, just to help them understand the process they'd be going through a procedure. So we already had a connection to the medical school. And when they linked us up with this faculty member, Dr. Mike Inglesby, who wanted to start a student-read journal called the Michigan Journal of Medicine, we were really excited about that. MJM for short. So Dr. Inglesby, who's a surgeon, but he also was really involved in pedagogy, he proposed that 3rd and 4th year medical students would edit this journal for course credit. So the 3rd years would be sort of doing an apprenticeship while the 4th years were really the core of the editorial board and the senior editors and editor-in-chief. And so it would be run through a 1-credit course that would go all year, and all the students working on it would attend weekly. And Dr. Inglesby had 5 pedagogical goals, I guess, for MJM. First was to ensure that all the medical students going through this would have a good understanding of the components of scientific writing. Secondly, that they'd get a high level of competency with scientific data as well, especially in the context of publication. Third, that they could become familiar with the selection and editorial processes in medical publishing, both as researchers, because they're all doing research projects while they're in med school, but also as editors who are moving a paper through the peer review process all the way through to final publication. Fourthly, that they could arrive at an understanding of the ethical issues in publishing, so things like peer review, plagiarism, citation, retractions, copyright, and a whole host of other issues. And finally, and this is one way the library I think tacked on a little bit usefully, is to help the students to create their online publication profiles, to get them an ORCID, for instance, just get them established as researchers so that later when they were writing papers for medical journals that weren't part of Michigan Medical School, that they would already be familiar with all of this and set them up for their careers in research. So as librarians and experts in scholarly publishing, we were able to contribute to all 5 of those different pedagogical goals. And we did that by attending class sessions. So various librarians from Michigan, including me and other folks on my team and some folks from our research team and our learning and teaching team, would come to different sessions of the course and talk to the students about different aspects of publishing, how to solicit papers, what is anonymous peer review and different flavors of that, how do you try to retain your copyright when you submit something, what's a Creative Commons license, what's open access, and what's the difference between green and gold and diamond, what are the roles and responsibilities of an editor-in-chief versus an editorial board versus other members of the journal team, how does all that work? So we guided them through explanations of all that and then actually doing the work with each piece. And even though probably none or almost none of these students will go on to a career in scholarly publishing, we think that having worked on a journal from a publisher's perspective is really going to help them to be better authors and researchers down the line. So in terms of outcomes for this project, first of all, it's been bringing some unflashy but interesting research to light, the projects that the students have submitted papers on to the journal. The first issue in 2016 had 11 articles, and we've published 7 issues since then for about 100 articles or so. And each one's been fully managed by the student editorial team. It's hosted on our open access platform at Michigan, Janeway, and year after year the students have reported to us that the experience of working on MJM has made them, has been formative really in coming to think of themselves as researchers and not just students. So I think assessment's important, and in doing a little bit of assessment of this program after 7 years, we've determined that a project really needs to have 5 different elements, or at least most of these, if it's going to be successful like MJM, because we've had some failures too. Got to have a disciplinary faculty advisor. If you don't have somebody who can mentor the students and teach them about publishing from the perspective of somebody in that field, it's not as high impact. Librarians need to be embedded. I think we need to be actively involved in something like a course and not just consultant ad hoc, or we can't really teach anything actively. There needs to be a formal connection to some kind of evaluation, like credit and a grade. Otherwise, medical students have so much on their plates, for instance. If there's no stakes at all, then many of them will put their effort elsewhere where there are stakes. Clear learning objectives. So we've worked with some student journals where it was a little fuzzy, a little foggy what exactly we were trying to achieve with the journal, and those just end up being busy work for the students, and I don't think it's really worth the time. And then assessment, really, to measure the effectiveness of the whole effort. It's hard to do that, but surveys are a good place to start. And I actually think it'd be interesting, now that we've been doing it for 7 years, to go back and see if there's been any measurable impact. Are the students who are part of this program actually, are they more likely to be editors of publications? Are they more likely to be submitting papers or not? I don't know. I don't know if it's a valid natural experiment or not. Maybe the control group's not defined well enough. But overall, I think it's been a big success. I'm really happy with the link, too, that it's been able to forge between the medical school and the library to bring them physically and virtually to the library so that they can see all the other resources we can also offer them. And so I'm really excited to talk about this program anytime anybody asks me to. So thank you.
Very much. Now, I'm keen on other people coming up with ideas of how they would like to reach out, given that people are not being reached out to, which is definitely the case, and what they would like to do, and if possible, what you have done to make sure that they are aware of the fact that the library can help them. Librarians can help them. Librarians exist. You'll be amazed how many people said to me, I never go anywhere near the library. And I said, but you use their stuff, you use their journals. Oh, that's where they come from, sort of thing. I mean, not quite as crude as that, but that sort of thing. And I said, is there a cafe in your library? Do you use that? And no, they didn't ever use, none of them used the cafe. I was staggered because I thought that was a big ploy to get people to go in. What are libraries for? Libraries are for students and humanities people. Okay? So, anybody got anything to say now? Here we are, gentleman in the front here.
Oh, thank you.
Could you say who you are?
Yes, Robert Weaver, Liberty University.
Okay.
I don't do anything with scholarly publishing at this point. Where would be a good place for me to start to educate myself so that I can, so I know how to proceed, or at least recognize where I am and what direction would constitute moving forward? How do I start becoming involved in this process if it's not being handed to me from the administration as an assignment? But if I were to instead recommend that, hey, I think we should do this, and I'd be willing to take lead.
Jason, that's you, isn't
Who
it?
do I give this to?
That's probably me. I would point you toward the Library Publishing Coalition. I think they're doing some great work at LPC. They have some good resources on their website. You don't have to be a member for any of that. They also have a great conference every year in May. I think it's going to be in Minneapolis next year. But I've been involved with them for a long time, and I've learned a lot through that community. So I think that's a great resource.
Anybody? Oh, yes, good. Hello.
Hi, Emily McElroy, University of Florida, and Ida is really humble.
I know she's humble. So you tell us what she actually really does.
She's a miracle worker. No, she's part of a great department that I think one of the things I really like about, it's called Academic Research Consulting and Services, is that it is that focus on the early career researchers and postdocs, because it's everything from reproducibility to informatics to data management to publishing, copyright, really throughout the whole life cycle, but you're teaching best practices. And I've only been there a year, and the number of consultations or the stories that Ida and her colleagues have are just really profound. And I think it is changing what you were saying, Anthony, like that perception of what do we do in the libraries, and that growth of research. And she's a big part of that. And I think having Ida's expertise coming from that world, we're also learning from her. So I also wanted to make that comment too, and making us rethink change our narratives.
Have you got anything to say to that, Aida? There's this great compliment being thrown at you by this kind lady.
Thank you. So, I mean, thanks, Emily. I will say, I started in 2021, and the department had just been created. So we're still in the formation phase. I don't know the four names of the formation. It doesn't matter. But so despite still kind of as a department figuring out how we present ourselves, I think that the members of our department, so we have an informatics librarian, a natural language processing librarian, a data management librarian, a GIS librarian. We're very, we have the ability to do a lot of data services, and it happened, call it good hiring, that we are pretty cohesive in like our perspective towards service and towards consultations and towards inclusivity and reaching out to our patrons and trying to make it, because data analysis broadly can be terrifying, right? And so, we have members that do publishing and scholarly communication, but I think the data services team does a really good job of making it understandable for across the spectrum, right? Our new chair, he actually came from publishing, and he went to our informatics librarians workshops, and he's like, oh, I actually understood what she was talking about. And he has no background in computation. And so I think one thing to think about, trying to reach out is, what is the language and kind of the approach. I'm not saying it right. One thing that has been a benefit, like Emily said, is most of us do have a higher degrees in our subject specialties. We have either PhDs in our topics or 20 plus years of experience. And I think it makes us very comfortable with our language, but also the mindset of we've been there, we know how it's terrifying in the beginning, and so it helps us frame, that's the word I was looking for, frame how we're going to approach these early career researchers to you want to hold their hand, but not quite hold their hand, so that they can get the information and feel confident in, in taking things with it and rolling, but knowing that they can always come back to us, right? So, we got you started, but you can always come back to us wherever you are in your point, and we'll be able to support you. And it's been working. We're getting a lot of repeats, actually.
Could I just quickly add something before you hand over to the next person? I know that Ramuna's came in, and she's still there. She's just hiding over there. And she taught me about medical librarianship and how it is different to some extent, because most good medical librarian groups in a university are actually helping the medical researchers in a more direct way, in all sorts of ways, because they're doing things like bibliographies, which is not done for scientists. No, that's true, isn't it? Okay, but sorry. I also want to say, librarians have so much to offer to these people. You might say to me that they will learn stuff from their PI or supervisor, depending on what level they're at. But those people are very busy. They assume that people are working for them, doing the most important part of the research, the cutting-edge part of the research, understand all the things that are available. LibGuides, for example. These people don't know about LibGuides. They don't know they exist. I know that because I did some separate work on plagiarism, which has been published. It was rather scattergun because we were doing it for a particular purpose. And I found that almost none of the people I spoke to, researchers I spoke to, understood that librarians had written quite a lot in LibGuides about plagiarism, how to avoid this. And I say, predatory journals as well as plagiarism. Predatory journals. I meant predatory journals. Sorry, I get the two things confused in my mind. I know they're totally different. Predatory journals, what a big thing. How to avoid them. They didn't know that librarians knew all that. And it's a big point. Okay, so go ahead, people. So please, I'm going to shut up.
Oh, no, it's wonderful. Thank you. Beth Callahan, UL Underwriters Laboratories Research Institutes. And this is particularly Ada, though I'm interested in anybody's response. I'm always flummoxed by how to do a survey. And you said you did a survey to people who don't know what librarians and libraries can offer. How do you ask them what they need and how we can help them if they don't know what we can do? Because I have asked, what can the library do for you? And folks go right back to that traditional mindset. How do you do a successful survey to discover the needs that us as, expanding professionals can help support them?
Sure. So I will say, thank you for the question. I will say this was a very targeted survey, and probably that might actually be the, how you get them to answer. They were, instead of asking them what you need, there were one or two questions. It was, for example, for our data services, what is your, how often do you use, or do you need to know about computational skills or about AI or about data management, right? And so then we did a Likert scale. How important do you think it'll be in 3 years? Trying to kind of foreshadow or foresee, what direction our services might need to go into. And then it was very specific, I think, and that and the ones that were open-ended, you don't really get good responses, right? So it probably is a matter of you coming up with a list of all the things you can offer that you think they don't know about, and then asking them very pointed questions. And if nothing, then they will learn that those services are available. One thing I didn't do that I probably should have done is work more closely with our assessment librarian, assessment specialist, for some of those open-ended questions. But I think that would be my approach again, right? Have the options of the skills or the services, and then have them respond to that. And if two things, right? You'll get some response, and then if you didn't, and then they will learn that those are options, and either be like, oh, now I can go back to you, or you can go, oh, they'll learn something new, is my point.
Okay. Any other thoughts, please? Ramuna's heard all this before, but you haven't heard this bit of it. Have you any thoughts, Ramuna? I'm asking you because I know you will speak if I lean on you.
Well, medical was already mentioned. So
Okay, look.
Michigan's got one model. So it depends on the services you have and that you want to offer, I guess. In the case of Michigan, it's partnered with a very robust infrastructure for scholarly publishing. In other places, early researchers might be well, we've been lucky that we've had our director hosting postdocs who are from the library and information world. So we have one now who's interested in ethics. So it's very interesting kind of looping him in.
In your library?
His office is in the library, but postdocs can't be hosted by the library, so he has a home department somewhere else.
Yeah.
But take advantage, I guess, of these relationships that come across where you can kind of piggyback on something that's already going on, I would say. You were talking about having direct contact.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that, say, systematic review services or evidence synthesis that a lot of non-medical people are doing, it could be students or faculty, but I don't know if the early researchers are doing them.
No, I don't know.
So take advantage, and I kind of like listing sort of a menu of things that might inform your future directions, because as they say many a time, you've seen one library, so there are different strengths, different folks with different skill sets that you can take advantage of, and it also what directions your higher ups want to be gone in.
Thank you so much, Ramuna.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to mention something else here, because when I first started coming to the Charleston conference, it was about 30 years ago, people were talking all the time about getting people into the library by bribing them in various ways, giving them coffee and so forth. And there was a great deal of new libraries being built. There was one somewhere in French Switzerland, I remember, who we much discussed. And it was a lovely building with masses of suites of places where you could have coffee. And of course, this does go on, but it wasn't. These people weren't going in because they didn't work in that way. They worked together in their groups, in their departments. They weren't going in. They weren't going in to use the facilities I know they have at Michigan. I've just been and seen it, where they could all work together and talk at the same time. They weren't doing that at all. Amazingly, they said that building over there, we'd never go in it. We had no intention of going in. It's something which is totally irrelevant to us. Now, I found that very, very horrifying, personally. Now, anybody else got anything to say about the lady there? Yeah. Yes, she's got it. Sorry, I didn't see you holding the sacred stick. Yes.
My name is Holly Dean. I'm the science librarian at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I kind of do a bunch of different things, but I teach Library Science 101 for undergraduate students, but a big part of my position is actually to reach out to graduate students and kind of figure out, you know, what their needs are. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about is having like workshops or creating, like you mentioned, your course that's for graduate students. And I guess I'm curious to hear a little more about that course and maybe how you put that together or how that came to be, because yeah.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I had gotten drawn in to this workshop series that the graduate school had running, and they were predominantly writing focused, where they had pulled in writing faculty to do like writing retreats and that kind of thing. But I was like, well, I think searching for their literature review and citation management, those are two really big things that we know that they're not getting. And we do have a liaison librarian organizational structure, but you know, I almost feel like going through the graduate school and like those workshops, for example, get announced through the graduate school, that might get more attention than if we as a library sent it out. And I don't know exactly why that is, but it does seem to work a bit better. And with my course, initially the first couple sections were fairly small in that I had like 13 the first time and 8 students the second time, which I was like, this isn't going to work if that's all I'm getting. But I finally was able to get a list of graduate program directors. It's not a very good list. Weirdly, our graduate school doesn't have an accurate list of our graduate program directors, but it still helped, and that totally changed things. And I've have another librarian now who's teaching a second section with me. So we did 2 sections last year, and we'll be doing 2 sections in winter quarter. And as far as designing the course, I had content from these workshops that we were doing that I adapted and then added on some of these other content areas, and particularly the scholarly publishing part. And what I really tried to do with the curriculum is make it as immediately applicable to the project or whatever the students are working on at that time. So with like data management planning, if they have a data set they're working on, their option is to write a draft data management plan. If there are students in the course who they're not having that kind of responsibility at that point, working or don't have data that they're working with, they can do, you know, I have readings and videos and everything that they're watching, and do a discussion post and talk about the, you know, core elements of data management and that kind of thing. So I try to provide options with really ideally having them be able to use whatever they're learning that week right away on their own project. So that's how I also make it relevant to all disciplines. It's very open-ended in that way. It's just the fundamental kind of understanding and skills that they need. And I was going to add something else. Oh, and the other thing that happened recently is that the sociology program director just told me that she's actually telling their graduate students that they can either take the sociology's 1-credit professionalization seminar course, or they can take my course in the winter, which is great news, but also means like I need to be able to keep this going. I'm kind of doing it in addition to, you know, it's not in my position description at all. So the sustainability and scalability of this is a little challenging, but it's really been the feedback from the students that has really kept me going. And for a lot of them, they hadn't interacted with a librarian before. A lot of them, honestly, so many of them are just like, I just use Google Scholar to find whatever I need. And I think, honestly, adding the credit, having a situation where the students need often a 1-credit class, has brought in folks that maybe wouldn't have interacted with the library otherwise. And I've had a really good diversity of disciplines. I've had humanities folks, social sciences and sciences, engineering students. So it's a pretty good spread. I have pretty much every social work PhD student has taken the course because they know me, and so that's nice. But
Trusted. You're trusted.
I'm yeah, I think
That's
so.
the key thing.
So yeah.
Just trust us. So please go. You